Well, Wolfenstein Youngblood has pissed some people off.
I'm just gonna say it. Wolfenstein Youngblood sucks.
Wolfenstein Youngblood is an absolute catastrophe of a video game. It's the second worst game I've played this year after Anthem.
Everyone saw the title, so I won't beat around the bush. This game is bad. Like, really bad.
Oh no!
Now, as someone who has grown up playing Wolfenstein, seeing all these opinions from people I really respect here on YouTube, I expected to also be making a video in the same vein. But to my surprise, I actually enjoyed Wolfenstein Youngblood, but that does not mean the game doesn't have its fair share of issues. So in today's video, I'll be going over the good, the bad, and the ugly, aka my nitpicks, with Wolfenstein Youngblood. This is a spoiler-free review, not that there really is a story to spoil to begin with. However, I will show footage of the final boss fight, as it is a fight with problems I'll be discussing. Also, an important side note, I played this game entirely solo. I did not try the co-op, as my friends saw the reviews and peaced out. So I bought the buddy pass for no reason. But I think that's all the pretense I need to set for this review. So let's jump in and talk about Wolfenstein Youngblood. Starting off with the good.
Yeah!
Wolfenstein Youngblood for me was a really enjoyable game to play through for the most part. As is typical with Wolfenstein as a series, it just feels good to kill Nazis. The guns feel good to shoot, the enemies, when approached with the right level, feel great to melt. The enemy variety makes most encounters feel varied and forcing you to switch up your weapons more often, which to some degree keeps the game's gunfights feeling fresh. Paris feels satisfying to explore for the most part, and whilst the world does have a massive Dunwall vibe, which isn't surprising considering Arcane's involvement in this latest entry, which I have no problem with, being also a big fan of the Dishonored series. But Paris has its secrets whilst also being a lot more vertical than the other games in the series. The game looks great as well, again, for the most part. It isn't a huge step up from Wolfenstein 2 and feels very similar graphics wise, but it still looks great. The game is a good challenge. I played the game on hard personally and was forced to be smart enough with my encounters and ways of approaching fighting the enemies, but not being too difficult where I couldn't just go in guns blazing most of the time. The AI partner is an aspect I've heard a bit of grief about as well, but throughout my personal playthrough I encountered only the one time the AI screwed me. That I'll be going over in the bad, because it was infuriating. But throughout the game, I felt that the AI, whilst they may not have been using the right gun for every situation, they did their part, drawing enemies' attention and killing enemies on their own. They can get themselves into bad situations and go down in less than ideal areas, but I never felt like this was too big of an issue, and actually only got one game over in my playthrough, and that was at the final boss. I enjoyed completing missions around Paris, gaining level tokens, leveling up and unlocking perks and gun attachments. This is an aspect I find hard to justify personally without just saying it feels good to do so. It feels good to massacre Nazis, seeing you've leveled up. It's a very Call of Duty satisfaction in my opinion, but nevertheless is satisfying. The checkpoint system is another issue I have heard a lot about, but as I said, I just got the one game over, and that was at the final boss, in which you just start the boss again. So this is an aspect I have no experience on whether they are bad or not. Now that concludes the good. Whilst I move on to the bad, I do want some to remember I did say I really enjoyed the game, but the game is far from perfect.
Scheiße!
Machine Games' writing and storytelling for their Wolfenstein series has become a pillar of what makes those games so great, developing a very one-dimensional character into a truly interesting and deep character. The the storytelling was just as big as the satisfying gunplay. So what happened here? We have two characters who essentially were blank slates. They could have been anything. Apparently Machine Games chose to have them be shit characters, written as though the development team are just full of only childs and don't know what sibling rivalry is like or the banter is like. They think this was a good job.
Ready for this, Kenneth?
More ready than you are, Arthur.
Zip it. Shit for brains.
Make me. Barf bag.
Shut your fucking mouth!
Look, I'm one of 7, so I know a bit about some sibling shit talking. This ain't it. Jess and Soph are just very boring, and honestly, just by how much they talk throughout the game, they're annoying and just not good characters.
I say, what time is it? I think it's time for Arthur and Kenneth to balustrate this sticky wicket.
Fuck yeah!
The story as well seems like an afterthought. We have no real development of Jess and Soph, no real insight into the 20 years that are yet to be explained since Wolfenstein 2. BJ just goes missing and Jess and Soph go after him, going to a lead in Paris for an underground resistance in which you help the resistance. But really, you're just doing side missions to level up so you can do the main objectives around Paris and find BJ. We have a twist that I guessed at the very start of the game, and the main bad guy is just a generic no-name character who doesn't really matter until the end. The majority of my problems with Youngblood is this letdown with the story and characters, being such a big reason many love the new Wolfenstein series, and now I'd honestly rather play the game on mute. But my problems don't stop here. The final fight in the game is one of the cheapest fights I've endured in quite some time. Now I'll go over this more in the ugly as I think it's more of a nitpick for the most part. But at this fight, I found myself struggling for ammo, being forced to use my pistol because that was the only gun I had left with armor piercing rounds. It's okay to have a boss that soaks a bit more bullets than usual. But this boss fight is an absolute bullet sponge, with not enough ammo around for your weapons that pierce armor, and it gets worse because if you die here, your ammo doesn't reset. And I only know this because I legitimately had the same moment SkillUp mentioned in his review. This happened to me as well.
Come on, don't do this thing where you bug out. No, come on. Please res me. Please res me.
I almost weathered the storm, almost beat him. After constantly risking my ass to revive my AI partner throughout the fight, I go down, she's beside me, and she goes in for the kill herself and dies. This moment here pissed me off to no end because no matter what level you are under-leveled for this fight. You barely do any damage to him and he will destroy your health and armor either with his lasers or his gunship that roams around shooting the battlefield. But man, did it feel good to finally get him. Really, this is all I have to mention for the outright bad. However, the ugly / nitpicks does have a few issues I'd like to mention that don't ruin the experience, but did rub me the wrong way. I think the biggest nitpick that almost made it into the bad was the level gating in Youngblood. The only reason it isn't for me is because you do level up quite quickly, and for the most part you can just avoid these areas. The reason I bring this issue up, however, is there doesn't seem to be any way the game tracks your current level, as while you're exploring Paris, Abby will tell you about little extra missions near you. Except in the early game, these are all mostly filled with enemies who will decimate you. Just really made me avoid these tasks altogether, just on the off chance yet again I'll be walking into an area I wasn't supposed to be yet. The missions themselves are also quite repetitive, usually consisting of retrieving a person, going to underground tunnels, or setting up for the main bosses. Again, not really a negative due to me enjoying the gameplay, but they are very simple. I also played the game on my Xbox One X, and for the most part ran really well, except for with the bosses and more specifically the explosions. I think it's best if I just show you. This weird glitch really made these fights a bit of an unnecessary chore due to, well, barely being able to see. As I mentioned before, the ammo can be also a bit of an issue. I mean, it's a Wolfenstein game, I shouldn't really be having to hunt for ammo quite as much, but again, there is a good amount of weapon variety, and for the most part, it doesn't really matter what ammo type you are using on basic enemies. But my last complaint that I thought I would put in the bad initially, as I hate this practice, but luckily, it barely exists here. Wolfenstein Youngblood has microtransactions. If you've been with the channel for some time, you know I'm not a fan of microtransactions in general, especially in AAA games, but especially in single player games. Luckily, however, I actually never even saw a prompt to buy this currency. It's only 4 skins, and I mean, if you want to buy them, that's up to you. But to me personally, it's not something that makes sense, and not something I would support. I think Wolfenstein Youngblood was an enjoyable game. For the most part, I did have fun playing the game, and that's sort of the basic requirement for games. Have it be a good time. I think the hate really does come from the story and the characters, but also obviously some annoyed with the change to gameplay, which I do understand. Trust me. This entry in the Wolfenstein series is easily my least favorite entry, but then again, it's not really a Wolfenstein game to begin with. Whilst it continues the story very poorly, it does pose an interesting question of where Wolfenstein 3 may pick up following the events of Youngblood. However, they also might fill in the 20-year gap, and then Youngblood truly is a spin-off. Again, I had a good time with Youngblood, but the narrative, characters, and the accumulation of nitpicks I described does dampen the overall experience for me. I'd personally wait for a good sale before picking this game up, but I do think, in my opinion, that as a game, Wolfenstein Youngblood can be a good Nazi killing time. But I really do hope that when Wolfenstein 3 finally releases, that it is bounds and leaps better than this entry. But right now, I am nervous for it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I realize this is not actually a popular take on this game, but I can only talk about the way I personally feel. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave the video a like, comment below your thoughts on Wolfenstein Youngblood if you've played it, subscribe if you're new. I do videos on the regular, and for my Alan Wake fans out there, my Alan Wake 2 video should be out sometime next week, so keep an eye out for that. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MayorHairBear for my latest gaming pickups, gaming opinions as I play through new games, and in general is a good way to keep up with the channel. But for now, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.